I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I've been scared to open up this HISS tank right here, but I think the time is right to get this out of the box and display it with all the rest of the G.I. Joes. Are you as curious about the HISS tank as me? Does it hold up after sitting in a box? We've seen a lot of improvements with the G.I. Joe Classified series. We've seen more vehicles with the G.I. Joe Classified series. Does the HISS tank still hold up as a HASLAB project, a dream project? I think we all have to stay tuned to figure it out because I haven't even opened the box yet. The thing about the HISS tank is this is the most expensive action figure vehicle that I have ever purchased in my life. But for good reason. It is one of these projects where I didn't have an original HISS tank. Through all the G.I. Joe stuff that I used to have, a HISS tank was not one of them, but it always looked so cool. It was so cool. I've always wanted to have one, and the fact that I have just a ton of G.I. Joe Classified figures made it almost imperative that I have it, because if I'm thinking back when I pre-ordered this, or at least backed the HASLAB project, it was one of the first instances where a large 6-inch scale vehicle was a viable option to purchase. There were a lot of people doing cool work in the 3D printing space and all of those other areas, and while I have dabbled in 3D printing, the time it takes, the skill it takes to assemble all that stuff is just something kind of beyond me at this point. So when I saw a ready-made, injection molded, everything fits together option, it was really not that difficult to back because it was such a cool feature-laden vehicle. It reminds me of a lot of the old G.I. Joe vehicles, at least the ones mid to later in the line where you're getting a lot of lights and sounds. I can't remember the exact name of the jet that I used to have, but it would project a light on the wall that you would fly around on a handle. Tons of lights and sounds. I think it was like the Ghost or something like that. I can't remember, but like it reminded me that the HASLAB HISS tank reminded me of those vehicles. I mean, they sold me on it. They sold me on it with all the cool product shots, with all the cool trailers and things like that. The lights. I didn't find this on the secondary market. I pre-ordered this. I backed the HASLAB for the G.I. Joe Classified HISS tank. I haven't opened it. It has been sitting in the box, but I want to take it out. I've wanted to open it. I've wanted to assemble it. I've wanted to display it. I'm actually really excited about this one, so let's go. I have a Cobra logo on this cardboard here. I'm guessing this is the box with all of the figures in it, and I'm just going to let you see it first because I'm kind of curious myself. And wouldn't you know, there's, all kinds of tissue paper. Let's see. Oh, no. Things are falling. That's okay, though, because we can adapt tissue paper, which makes a nice crinkling sound, a sticker sheet. I love a good sticker sheet, and here we have one. And then we have our 4 figures right here. So let's just jump right into this. Let's get this one out because I think this is going to be the easiest one to get out. Here we have, which one is this one? This is number 99. Is this our tactician? This is the Cobra HISS driver. Then we have, this is our gunner right here. This is number 101. And here is our tactician. This one has the Ron Rudat signature on it. This one is number 100. I love the fact that I have number 100 now. The funny thing is because I've waited so long to open this box, the windowless packaging for the boxes seems almost like retro at this point, which is kind of funny because the next figure that I'm pulling out here is the retro carded Cobra Commander, which has the Mickey Mouse ears. So this is the misprint but not misprint version of Cobra Commander, file card on the back, and then the Cobra logo. It is really cool. I'm just taking a look at this. I don't have the retro version of Cobra Commander. I have the Wave 1 version of Cobra Commander, so this looks pretty fun. I think I'm going to keep this one in the box because I don't really have any of the retro figures. I'm consciously not collecting any of the retro figures for the G.I. Joe Classified line because I feel like I've had those before, and I like the classified updates to some of the figures, so that is exciting to me. But this one is special, right? Because it is coming from the HISS tank. It has that history with the Mickey Mouse ears on the Cobra logo. This one's going to stay in the box. But all the rest, those are going to come out, but we need to get at the tank still. It's a heavy box. Even with these out, it's still a heavy box. So we have the Cobra HISS logo on this side. This is, again, another box that hinges up. So let's take a look at it together. Guessing there's going to be a little more packing tissue in there. No, not this one. But we do have some things immediately jumping out first. We have the canopies. It has 2 canopies, remember. So this is the vintage-inspired one. It is just the clear plastic. This one, the classified version, I like this one because it has the Wingle doors on the side. We have We have some of the tread covers. That it is another option that we could put on the HISS tank. And what else do we have here? Oh, we have the gunner guns turret. The gunner's turret, of course. That's what that would be called. There's a lot going on here. I got to put this box down, and we'll look at each individual piece separately. I think that's going to be the best way to do it because there's so much here. Again, we have the different plate covers for the treads. Whew, this is exciting. This is very well packaged. There is a lot of thick plastic poly bag on here. I can already feel the treads. They have that nice tension to them. This is our main HISS tank unit. We have some cardboard in here. Everything is just so well packaged and done. Really impressed by just how it all came together. But also, okay, so we have this. We don't have it fully even unwrapped yet, but I want to compare this to the size of another G.I. Joe vehicle. Here we have the Cobra Ferret. Here we have the HISS tank. The Cobra Ferret sits at about tread level when it comes to the HISS tank. This thing is a monster. And then just another quick comparison for comparison's sake. There's a lot of weight in these vehicles. But you can see here we have the Stinger sitting next to the HISS tank. You see the differential here. The Stinger, an impressive vehicle, right? This is the Cobra version of the Vamp. An impressive vehicle in its own right, but we have it sitting next to the HISS tank, still in its wrapper. But you can see just how much larger the HISS tank is than all of the rest. Now I'm going to put the Stinger down because I'm going to want to get this unwrapped, unpackaged, and then I'm going to compare them to the sizes. We can see a little better, but that's just a little preview. That is a preview of what is inside here. Some missiles from the side. I think these come out of the treads. We have an even larger turret here. We have the other side. And then it looks like this is more guns. More guns. What this all goes to, well, you know, that's what the instructions are for. And those instructions are with the sticker sheet. This will give us like just a little idea. I'm just gonna hold this up. We're gonna see what the instructions hold for us, because it's always interesting. Here is our instruction manual. It tells you where all of the guys are. It tells you where the batteries go, and it gives you an explanation as to what is happening with the tank. There are a lot of features here. You want to know where that turns on, especially things with like especially things with the seat belt, how that all clicks into place. I have all the pieces laid out at my feet here. This isn't the best place for them. I need to get this all assembled. I need to get all of the packaging undone, which is going to be the exciting part, because then we get to see the final assembled vehicle. Ooh, I'm tingly. I'm tingly. I'm ready to do this. So let's go do it. I mean, this is in my hands. This thing feels so amazing. This is incredible. Like, this is so cool to have a 6-inch scale HISS tank. Something that I never thought I would have in a million years, but here it is. And they did such a great job with how to modernize this in a number of different ways. There are the callbacks, there are the throwbacks. For the most part, having like this hatch is just so much fun. I mean, I can't gush enough about just how fun this is, how hefty it feels. And for the price that people were putting down for backing this thing, it should feel that way. And the fact that they delivered on it is incredible. I have no regrets putting this together. The one little issue that I see is that the missiles that go on the side don't feel the most sturdy. They wiggle a lot, and when I was putting on some of the plates for the treads, they fell out, they popped out. But it's an easy fix. It's the dog bone peg that we all know and love from the G.I. Joe world. I mean, here's the thing. I haven't even gotten out the figures yet. I'm already super impressed with just how substantial this vehicle is. There's a lot more work to go with this thing. But I want to compare it with everything, and then also put the missile system on it. I think that's another awesome thing about opening up this later, because we have all the accessories, we have all the pieces that go along with it that make it more of a fleet, that make it more of an imposing thing. And I can't wait for that part, but we got to get the figures out, and then we need to put batteries in the thing. Oh boy, the fun doesn't stop with this, does it? As I was going through all the packages, opening everything up, you can see the care, the consideration, the thought behind assembling a project like this. It's truly remarkable when product designers, toy designers have free reign essentially on a project to make it as like cool as possible. I've never had an experience like this with toys, and this just feels so good. Like, this is what I remember opening up toys on Christmas as a kid. It's just so fun, right? Like, there's an assembly component here, so it feels like I'm putting together the pieces of this tank. And then the detailing, you can't help but notice some of the detailing. The main turret has the bluing of the barrels, so the laser blasts feel lived in. It feels like a lived-in vehicle, even though it's very pristine. Probably something that just rolled off a destro shop. They tested the weapon systems to make sure that it worked and then got it to the front lines of Cobra. There's so much storytelling that goes on with this vehicle. And we don't even have the figures that help tell the story on this thing yet. And once we get that, I think it's going to be quite the thing. Opening these up today when we have the window to packaging back in the classified series, it feels a little quaint, it feels a little antiquated, which is kind of fun. I wouldn't go back to that, but it's just kind of a nod to that era of the G.I. Joe classified series. Well, I guess action figures in general from Hasbro, right? The footlockers I still think is a great idea. I wish they could incorporate that somehow with the current classified series, but that's a topic for another day. These are figures that serve a purpose. They go inside the HISS tank. They're not something that I'm going to pose outside of the HISS tank. I don't see any reason that I would want to do that. Now, like I said, of course, I'm going to be keeping Cobra Commander here, the retro carded one with the error print on it, still inside the bubble, still inside the blister. I think it's just a cool thing. This will look good on my display, and of course, the card is unpunched, which is just another nice nod to collectors. I forgot they even did that, and to see that it's unpunched is pretty cool. There was, again, a lot going on in this, and I think we see that through the echoes of the other Haslabs they've done. The Dragonfly, which is coming really soon when I'm filming this video. I might even have it by the time this video gets posted. And then the just backed Rattler, which is going to take a while to make, but it's this stuff right here that made the setup for the other Haslabs so successful, I think. But the other thing that I want to talk about the figures is that even though they do seem simple, there are some really amazing qualities about them. For starters, they have some unique pieces. I like the way that the boots are on these figures. Not only is it very futuristic, it's also very scaly, like a cobra, like a snake, which is really well done. And there's also somewhat of an embarrassment of riches when it comes to adding accessories with these figures. I would have expected, or I guess I forgot, I thought we would have had maybe like a hand swap and then a few weapons, but when you look at them in totality, there are so many individual pieces that are just really great to have. The problem I can see is just storing some of these things, because while I can shove the things inside of the HISS tank, I won't be able to put the hands in there without it looking kind of weird. And speaking of the hands, the fact that they have those really chunky gloves, those fists, are really cool. I like that look. They add a lot of character to, admittedly, a simple figure. The issue that I have with some of them is that the joints are loose. Well, I could go through each individual figure, just know that collectively they complete the unit. I don't think you can have the HISS tank without the figures, and you can't have those figures without the HISS tank. Well, I suppose you could. They could be like an army builder of sorts, but they would be missing something. They wouldn't feel special. And I think the inclusion of these four figures, Cobra Commander notwithstanding, he is a special figure that, again, I think he's going to be one of those ones that I keep apart, keep separate. But having the rest of them, the tactician, the driver, the gunner, all being on there, ready to go down the battlefield towards the Joes, is where these will remain. But last but not least, we need to get some lights in this thing and then wrap up my overall thoughts. There's no doubt in my mind that the HISS Tank Haslab project still holds up, even after all this time sitting in a box. This is still one of the most impressive vehicles for not only just 6-inch scale, but for, I think, any scale that I've personally had my hands on. Are there things that I wish it would have done better? Absolutely. I think some of the wobbly joints in the figures is a little bit of a bummer, even though they're mostly going to be stationary inside the vehicle. The only other thing that I feel like could have been improved just ever so slightly was the missiles on the sides. There's a little wobbly, it's hard to align them so that they have like a nice standing display look to them, but overall, if we're looking at the value for what this originally cost, it's there. It is there, and The nice fit and finish things, it's all done to the nines. If you look inside of the HISS tank, it could have just been an empty cavern, but they chose to put the jump seat. They chose to put the weapons rack and build paneling alongside of the outer shell so that it doesn't look like a giant void. It looks like a working military vehicle. And speaking of working, it does have the lights that just give it that chef's kiss extra touch. And then the treads, that's something that I can't overlook, is that when you have a vehicle like this, does it roll? We don't typically see that with water-based vehicles, and of course we definitely don't see that with flight-based vehicles. Gonna have to whoosh those through the air. This is an impressive thing. This is how you do vehicles in a 6-inch scale correctly. Set the high watermark for all G.I. Joe Haslabs at this point, and you would assume that there would be more issues with creating the vehicle needed for these G.I. Joe figures, but they knocked it out of the park. It holds up. It is definitely something that if you can get your hands on, even just seeing at a convention or knowing somebody who's a collector that has one of these things, if you don't already have one, I think is really cool. Now, looking at all of the ground-based Cobra vehicles in total, the HISS tank sits apart and actually sits a lot taller and bigger and wider than any of the other Cobra vehicles so far. More recently, we have the Ferret as well as the Stinger to look at, and those go extremely well with the HISS tank because they have that more, it's a futuristic approach, but it's a lot more boxy, it's a lot more military, very harsh corners, whereas some of the earlier stuff, and I would even say Scrap Iron's drone falls into this category, is that we have a little more sci-fi, a little more sleek, rounded corners for things, especially the coil cycle that the Baroness rides from the early waves of the G.I. Joe Classified series. So to see them all together, it looks like a fleet of vehicles. It's really cool. They all do go together, but there is some slight differences when it comes to the overall design philosophy of some of the earlier things in the G.I. Joe world. And because we have the benefit of opening up the HISS tank much later, we also have the HMS missile system, which is a great addition to have that towing on the back of the HISS tank. It just looks so much more imposing. It looks so much more very menacing. It's a very menacing look. But as you can see, the problem now becomes, where does this all go? Because all of these vehicles, if you display them in kind of like a fleet pattern, it will take up most of a table already. I'm going to have to be a little creative when it comes to this, and I think that is the unsaid drawback of something as large, something as impressive as this HISS tank, is that where does it go? And I don't have an answer for that yet, and it's something that I should have been thinking about for years because it's been sitting in the box. I was always telling myself that's a later Ryan problem, and well, here it's a now Ryan problem. Because I'm reviewing this so much later than the initial release, the question becomes, do you track this down from a third-party seller? If you are a completist, if you are somebody who appreciates the vehicles in the G.I. Joe Classified series as the third type of character, not a Joe, not a Cobra, but a vehicle, right? They have just as much personality as a lot of the other figures, and I think if you have the means to do it, because looking at some of the prices for those, it's kind of incredible. I don't know if I can necessarily recommend things at the higher end, but if it's one of those deals, I think this is a good one to track down within those very strict parameters. Because honestly, if you have something like a Stinger, which is still an expensive vehicle to track down even after its really recent release, this can be good enough. You don't have to spend the Haslab money to have a good vehicle in the G.I. Joe world. But I think from now on, and I'm glad I've backed the Dragonfly as well as the Rattler, because I'm pointing it over there because it's just standing there. It's beautifully situated. It's lit up. It's so dynamic. It is so incredible. I think this is one of the best action figure vehicles created. Of course, the problem is going to be space. I'm gonna have to clear off some space somewhere around here to display this thing because I don't want it to go without being prominently displayed in my collection because it is a fantastic piece of plastic. It is a fantastic vehicle. I am so happy that I got it. And understand that I'm somebody who was able to back this when it launched. So I have a significant investment in this. And this isn't just me trying to justify the cost of it. I think the cost has justified itself. I would be a lot more disappointed in it if it didn't hit that value mark. But when you have the figures, when you have this vehicle with all of the bells and whistles, I can't help but be happy that it came out as well as it did. And if you want to see me open the next Haslab, the Dragonfly, be sure to subscribe to this channel because you are not going to want to miss that if you like vehicles. I think this is going to be another good one, and where I'm going to display that one, I'm thinking of hanging it up somewhere. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. And if you like action figures, if you like blasters, if you like collectibles of all sorts, cool nerdy things that I like, you definitely are going to want to stick around. And that's all I know about the Cobra HISS Tank from the G.I. Joe Classified series. If you have any remaining questions, you know where to put them. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you later.